protect it, because one of the big problems that we have in the Caribbean region is illegal fishing. Illegal, unreported, unregulated is the formal term that is used. But in a sense, we're talking about illegal
fishing in each other area.
Right. In some cases, it's done by domestic fishers, fishermen locally. But there's a big problem with foreigners,
trawlers out
foreigners coming in, and sometimes we do not recognize the extent of this problem, but it is massive across the region. Why? Because our capacity to monitor and to enforce our laws
we can't police it,
is limited.
It's very difficult.
And so this is another problem that we have to deal with. Then we have to look at the technology. We have to look at the type of fishing boat, the type of fishing gear, etc., that we use, and the training and capacity of the fishermen, and just the way they approach the industry.
Right,
So these are just a few of the areas, but apart from that, we have to look at the marketing opportunities as well. And we mentioned earlier that in the case of Belize, which is typical in many of our countries, our fishers are concentrated in the Back Reef area, exploiting the coastal resources. But there are fishing opportunities beyond that also, in the deeper waters. And I tell you something, even on the high seas, that is beyond our exclusive economic zone, on the high seas, we have opportunity to harvest resources there. Now, underlying everything we do, and a point that I really have to stress again, is the need for conservation and protection and balancing the way you exploit with the capacity of the resource to sustain the level of exploitation. One of the things about fish stocks is that they produce what you call surplus yield. So, God has really blessed us with these resources. You can take a certain amount from a fish stocks, and it will not decimate or reduce or diminish the fish stocks in any way, because they keep producing the surplus that enable you to take a certain amount. But you have to estimate by science what is this quantity that you can take without harming the fish population.
There's a balance.
There is a balance. Yeah. And if you respect that balance and harvest in such a way that you take the surplus without decreasing,
always sustained.
You have something that will sustain you forever and ever. Yes.
Okay. What we'll do, we'll go to that clip, and then we'll come back.
So many people in the Caribbean region depend in one way or another on our fishing industry. Our fisheries give us thousands of jobs at sea and on shore. And the sea gives us healthy and nutritious food. Visitors depend on our sea as much as we do. There is only one Caribbean sea. It sustains us all and will for generations to come if we take care of it. Caribbean Fisheries, our treasure, our life.
All right. A little there about them. But one of the things, Mr. Haughton, I know that we've been talking about the importance of fishing, and at the core of this has to be the fishermen. You talked about changes. How involved are the fishermen in terms of trying to point out the importance of, as you mentioned, showing them how things can be sustained so it does not feel like a threat to their livelihood?
Yes. In the past, a lot of fisheries management and fisheries administration was pushed by government. Government officials and scientists getting together and saying, these are the things we will do. That has changed dramatically. And we recognize now that that approach is not the way to go. It doesn't work. What we have now, and what we're trying to promote even more, is a more effective governance arrangement. And a key part of this is the participation of all stakeholders. Fisher folk and fishermen in particular having a key role in the planning, in doing the research, in making decisions, and in implementing the decisions that affect their livelihood. This is critical, and the extent and the degree to which we will succeed depend a great degree on the extent to which the fishers and other stakeholders who
How
have
are
an
we-
interest in the sector.
How are we
And
doing in Belize in terms of the fishers being involved in that process?
I think reasonably well. Reasonably well. There's still room for improvement. And so the new fisheries bill that has been developed that I mentioned earlier actually enshrine this approach in law.
Okay.
Because in Belize and in most other countries in the Caribbean, it is just through goodwill, that you involve the fishers. And sometimes fishers are involved when people think it's good for them, and sometimes you have a difficult decision and you ignore them. And that shouldn't be. So the best practice now is to enshrine the principle of participation and involvement of stakeholders as a principle of law in the fishery management and governance arrangement. So we are moving towards that and to strengthen the participation. One of the things that we have been promoting, and this underpins the development of the common fisheries policy, for example, is engagement with the fisher folk at all levels. Now, there are challenges involved with that, because very often the fisher folk themselves are not very organized, and it's difficult for them it's difficult to get a united position from them. But be that as it may, we have to deal with that. And in fact, one of the things that the CRFM, my organization, that we have been doing over the past 10 years is actually to, with support from our donor partners, international donor partners, is to invest in building the capacity of the fisher folk and their organizations so that they can participate and advocate for their interest and sit with the administrators and the scientists and the government officials when they're discussing fisheries issues and making policy decisions and so on. But the involvement of the fishers is absolutely necessary and important. At the end of the day, a big part of what we're trying to do is improving the livelihood of the fishers, improving their standards of living, improving their earnings and income. And in order to do that, it's best to
get
be
them
able
involved.
to draw on their extensive knowledge, because I tell you, some of the fishers, they have knowledge and traditional knowledge that can be very, very useful. And so tapping into that and also getting their commitment and support for the policies is extremely important and necessary.
All right. Good.
Well, we need to take a break at 6 minutes after.